guys, Logan Battles here, and welcome to another episode of LBFT. This is episode 23 of LBFT Season 2. This is one of the last two episodes of LBFT Season 2. Not the last, but the next to last of Season 2 of LBFT. For this episode, I'm not going to be focusing on the NFL, or their games, or their coaches, or their players, or their GMs, or their owners, or anyone else that is in charge of it, or even Roger Goodell. I won't be or even their schedule, or anything else that is related to the NFL. I won't be doing that in this episode. I will be focusing on a college football related topic, and that is doing my top 10 list of best wins for the Clemson Tigers football team under Dabo Swinney from 2008 to the present day. Now, the last LBFT episode where I counted down my top 10 list was, I believe, episode 2, where I counted down my top 10 most anticipated NFL games of 2018. It was that episode I did. So, I'm going to be doing it again, this time on my picks for the top 10 best Clemson football wins under Dabo Swinney. That's what this episode is going to be about. Me counting down my top 10 list for the best wins that Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers had since he arrived at Clemson as the head coach. Or since he became the interim head coach when Tommy Bowden decided to stand down as the head coach for Clemson, leading Dabo Swinney in charge. So, without any further ado, let's get started at number 10. Number 10, the 2016 Orange Bowl. Now, I'll be the first to tell you guys that I didn't expect to put this game at the number 10 spot, only because this game was very tight in the first half, but in the second half, the Clemson Tigers with Deshaun Watson shut out Baker Mayfield and the Oklahoma Sooners in the second half, and beating them 37-17. So it wasn't an overall close game due to the lopsided second half, but I will also say this. This game was Clemson's first ever college football victory which led them to enter the national championship for the first time since 1981, the year that they won their first national championship. So the significance of this game reflects on how great of a team Clemson is and how great of a coach Dabo Swinney is. Now, although the score was 37-17, the 37-17, it's not indicative of what this game truly felt like, a defensive game. This felt more like a defensive game than an offensive game in terms of third down efficiencies for both teams. But Oklahoma lost to a better team because Deshaun Watson ran with the football very effectively. Not so much in the passing game. He wasn't really that impressive passing-wise, but he ran really well with the football. And Wayne Gallman ran the ball really effectively as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention that at the time Clemson beat Oklahoma, this was their second Orange Bowl victory in a 3-year span. The first Orange Bowl game that they won was the 2014 Orange Bowl, where they beaten Ohio State 40-35. Speaking of which, let's get to number 9. The 2014 Orange Bowl Number 12, Clemson defeated number 7, Ohio State, 40-35. Unlike the 2016 Orange Bowl, this bowl matchup was more close and competitive for both teams, fighting until the very end. Dabo Swinney and the 12th-ranked Clemson Tigers were the 2.5-point underdogs going up against Urban Meyer and the 7th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. And both teams were competing very hard to win this game. The Buckeyes and the Tigers fought to the very finish when Braxton Miller's pass was intercepted at the Clemson 39-yard line, with over a minute left in the game, on the clock rather. And the Clemson Tigers claimed their first BCS Bowl win in school history. It was a great win. Both teams were physical, tough, and fast. They were playing lights out. Taj Boyd was terrific. He was terrific. Completed 31 of his 40 passes. Passed for 378 yards. Made 5 touchdown passes. And 2 interceptions. He also ran really well. Carried the ball 20 times and rushed for 127 yards. And made 1 rushing touchdown. And this dude, Roderick McDowell, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, was really legit as well. 12 carries with 69 rushing yards. He was no scrub. But let's talk about Sammy Watkins for a minute. Because, my God, this dude, 16 receptions? 227 receiving yards? 14.2 yards per catch? This man was absolutely sensational. He was something special to behold. I mean, he put up an absolute show in this game. He was the best part of this game to me. He was the best part of that game. Let's just be honest. He really, really was. So, the only importance here for this game to me, beyond the fact that Clemson won this game as the 2.5-point underdogs against the 7th-ranked team in the country, is the fact that this was their first victory in a BCS Bowl in its entire history. And not only that, this was their delivery to Urban Meyer's first loss in BCS Bowl games. That's what makes the Clemson Tigers great, and can be argued as one of the biggest underdog teams in college football. They have beaten a few top 10 ranked teams when not very many people thought they would. I shouldn't say all of them. I shouldn't say all of them, but most at least didn't think that they would. Moving on to number 8. The 2012 Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Number 14 Clemson defeated Auburn 26-19. Now, some of you guys might not be fazed by this pick. Maybe because Clemson was going up against an unimpressive Auburn team. Or because this was when Clemson hasn't been the same since their 70-33 loss in the 2012 Orange Bowl against West Virginia. Or because this game didn't really set the tone for what type of a team Clemson was going to be in the future. Whatever the reason, I will let you guys know right here and right now why this game is at number 8 on my list. It has nothing to do with Dabo Swinney, who was and is still a great coach. It has nothing to do with Taj Boyd, who played very solidly in this game. It has nothing to do with Andre Ellington, who was incredibly phenomenal. It has nothing to do with the Clemson defense and how well they performed. It has nothing to do with any of that. To me, it has to do with what this win actually means for the Clemson Tigers. Think about this for a second. This was their first back-to-back wins against Auburn since the early 50s. Because in the previous season before this game, Clemson defeated Auburn for the first time since 1951. The reason why I bring that up is why it's important to bring that up is because any team that Clemson goes up against, anytime Clemson goes up against an SEC team like Auburn, they're usually looked at as if they're the David going against the Goliath that was Auburn, or looked by a lot of people. And because of the perception that teams in the SEC are better than any other team from any non-SEC team or conference, that puts the pressure on Clemson and set the stakes higher for them. And do you want to know what Clemson did? Even with all this pressure being put on their shoulders and the stakes being higher for them, did you know what Clemson did? They did not back down. They kept holding their heads straight up, above water, looking at Auburn straight in their face, and start fighting against Auburn. And they kept fighting against Auburn harder. As a result, Clemson defeated Auburn in the 2012 season opening matchup at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, 26-19. And that's what stands out to me about this game, more so than anything else. And this is the first, and not last, Clemson versus SEC matchup to be put on this list. Speaking of which, speaking of Clemson going up against SEC teams, number 7, we have the 2018 regular season Week 2 matchup. Number 2, Clemson defeated Texas A&M. 28-26 was the final score. Now forget about the fact that Texas A&M was unranked, and let's just focus on this game in general. This was a great matchup. I loved everything about this matchup. Well, almost everything. Anyway, I know that I'm not a football player, but I can see how hard it must be for the Clemson Tigers to win on the road, especially in College Station against the Texas A&M Aggies. Unless if you're Alabama, but that's besides the point. Now this was when the QB situation took place for Clemson. You got Kelly Bryant and you got Trevor Lawrence, a then true freshman quarterback out of Cartersville High School in Georgia. Both quarterbacks for Clemson, not just competing for the win in this game, but also competing for the starting quarterback spot for Clemson. And not too long after Clemson's thrilling 28-26 road win against Texas A&M, Dabo Swinney named Trevor Lawrence as the starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers. And as a result, Kelly Bryant decided to transfer from Clemson. And I bring that up for this reason. It was the tone-setter moment for the Clemson Tigers. What I mean by that is whoever was going to be the starting quarterback would determine the future of any football team. It don't matter who you pick, good or bad. Take a look at both the 2017 and 2018 seasons. Take a look at both of those seasons. Who was the starting quarterback for Clemson in 2017? Kelly Bryant. Who was the starting quarterback for Clemson in 2018? For the most part, it was Trevor Lawrence. You see the difference here? If not, then let me help you guys out with this analogy. On one hand, you got a young black mobile quarterback who was unquestionably talented, nothing to talk bad about, and he's incredibly gifted and talented to where he brought them to the college football playoffs, but didn't really get the job done in one of the national semifinals. And on the other hand, you got a former freshman quarterback out of a high school in the state of Georgia who was every bit as impressive as ever. So much so that he led them to actually win a national semifinal, heading to a national championship and win it. And he became the first true freshman quarterback to start and win a natty, short for national championship if you're wondering what that is, since 1985. If Dabo Swinney picked Kelly Bryant over Trevor Lawrence as the Clemson Tigers starting quarterback, do you really think that 2018 would be any different from 2017? Do you? Do you think 2018 would be any different from 2017 if Dabo Swinney picked Kelly Bryant over Trevor Lawrence? Because I'm here to tell you that, hell no, I don't think so. Well, or wouldn't think so. I really wouldn't. Now, I'm not in any way trying to diminish Kelly Bryant and what he has done for this program. He gave them a great year and led them to the college football playoffs. I'm not taking any credit away from what he had done at Clemson. What I am saying is that this was one of those moments where Dabo Swinney felt like he had to make a decision that is best for the team to win. That was him saying that, not me. He had to make a decision for this in order for this team to win a lot of games and then head and win a national championship. But I feel like it's much more than that. I figured Dabo Swinney didn't want to admit. I feel like he didn't want to admit this, nor do Clemson do. But I can really tell, and I think you guys can too. We can. I can't speak. I don't know why. Dabo Swinney instead picked Trevor Lawrence over Kelly Bryant. And I believe that there's a reason for that. And again, I don't think Dabo Swinney would admit this, and probably neither would Clemson or the entire Clemson program. But the reason why I think that Dabo Swinney picked Trevor Lawrence over Kelly Bryant is because they know that even though Kelly Bryant was a terrific player, they know that Trevor Lawrence is better in every single trait of a quarterback that he has. Every single trait of a quarterback that Trevor Lawrence had was better than what Kelly Bryant has. Not taking any credit away from Kelly Bryant. He was a great player, a really great athlete. But when you look at Trevor Lawrence, you really can't help but say that this dude gave them brought them to the national championship and won it. I mean, this dude is every bit as impressive as they come. So that's what it came down to for me. That was my biggest takeaway looking back to this game. If Dabo Swinney didn't pick Trevor Lawrence, Clemson wouldn't go to the national championship. They really wouldn't. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he was their best chance of entering a national championship and win it. Excuse me. Not Kelly Bryant. So anyway, moving on to number 6. The 2016 regular season Week 10 matchup. Number 3 Clemson defeated number 12 Florida State. 37-34. Oh, Clemson versus Florida State. One of the most popular rivalries in all of college football, right alongside the Iron Bowl, or the Magnolia Bowl, or the Tiger Bowl, or any other rivalries in general. This was going to be a great matchup. And even though my Florida State Seminoles came into this game having 2 losses on their resume and were already out of the college football playoff picture, they were still considered to be a real challenge for the Clemson Tigers, considering that they played at Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee, a tough environmental place for a visiting team to win at. And this was also Clemson's best shot at making an appearance in the college football playoffs before the season comes to an end. So Clemson would have to win this game, or their chances of being in the Final Four would be at stake. And very much like the Texas A&M game, this was also a great football game for Clemson because they had to go up against an elite Florida State Seminoles rushing assault led by my man Dalvin Cook, and the equally elite passing attack led by DeAndre Francois. Both teams had competed hard to the very end of the game, and the Clemson Tigers have finally beaten my Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee for the first time since 2006. Now, obviously, a few turnovers and 13 penalties total caused my Seminoles this game. But even as a Noles fan, I gotta give credit where credit is due to Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers for this win. They deserve it 100%, because had my Florida State Seminoles won this game, the Clemson Tigers would be in a world of trouble and have a good chance of not making to the college football playoffs. And by the way, just on a side note, I think this was the second prediction I made where I picked my Seminoles to beat the Tigers. The first one I made was for the 2015 matchup at Clemson, and I picked my Seminoles to win at Death Valley Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina. And I was dead wrong. And I was wrong yet again. This time on my prediction for this game in Tallahassee. So I want to take this moment to feel humble after, 2 or 3 years of silence, of not giving an apology. 2 to 3 years of wait. I feel the need to feel humble, to have a humbling moment, and then apologize to Coach Dabo Swinney and for picking against him twice in both 2015 and in 2016. I didn't pick him to win against my Seminoles until the 2017 season. Twice, I had picked against him, and I was wrong on both. And I was wrong twice on them. Both of them, I was wrong. Congrats to Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Much love and respect for you and what you have done. And I apologize for picking against you. You have shut me up. And that cannot be, that cannot be ignored. So anyway, moving on to number 5. The 2013 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Number 14 Clemson defeated number 8 LSU, 25-24. The 2013 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. A postseason bowl game between LSU and Clemson. An SEC versus ACC matchup that got a lot of people excited to see. And it was yet another great game that was very close. Very, very close. Taj Boyd was somewhat impressive, I mean, he wasn't really that amazing. It's just that there were plenty of mistakes he had made that just, prevented him from being great. But he was still impressive nonetheless. I mean, when the game got tight, when the game was on the line, he did what he had to do. So I give him credit in that respect. DeAndre Hopkins looked like an absolute stud. He looked like an absolute stud in this game. I'm just going to tell you guys right now. I mean, looking at the stats and the way he has performed throughout the entirety of this game, I mean, this dude was on another level. And now, offensively, this game got a bit sloppy. And I say sloppy because there were many ball drops that were easily catchable, at least to me. Now, some of them were overthrown, some of them were underthrown, but the majority of them at least could have been caught. At the very least, could have been caught by any of the Clemson receivers or tight ends. But that's mostly not the case here. So both offenses have struggled in terms of dropping the ball multiple times, but that's also in terms of how great both defenses were in this game. Now again, like I said about the 2016 Orange Bowl, this also felt more like a defensive game than an offensive game, because the final score of this game, 25-24, is not indicative of what this game really felt like. There was clearly there was defensive effort to be found in this game. And another thing, this was the last game in Clemson's 2012 football season, right? Well, I mean, yeah, it was the last game in the 2012 Clemson Tigers football season, but this was not the last time we would see Clemson in a postseason bowl game. This was not the end of the Clemson Tigers. This was just the beginning. This was just the first hint at Clemson being the type of team that they were going to be in the future. This was just the first step of Clemson stepping into greatness and becoming one of the best programs in college football. And this was also not the last matchup we would see between Clemson and an SEC team. Oh no, there are still more. Specifically, two more that we're going to be talking about. Particularly this matchup. Number 4, 2013 regular season, week 1 matchup. Number 8, Clemson defeated number 5, Georgia, 38-35. Now, the LSU-Clemson game was a great close game to watch. It was just as intense and white-knuckling of a game as it could have been and should have been. I mean, to be viewed on national television. It was just that great. However, the hype for this game, for that game, was pretty tamed compared to the hype for this SEC versus ACC matchup. The number 8 ranked Clemson Tigers played at Death Valley in the 2013 season opening game against a top 5 ranked team from the SEC, that are the Georgia Bulldogs. The hype for this game was off the charts. Everybody was pumped up to watch it, hoping that this was going to be a great game. And was it a great game? You're damn right it was. Dabo Swinney had never faced a top 5 ranked non-ACC team up until that point. Until he faced Georgia, Dabo Swinney in his entire tenure at Clemson has never faced a top 5 ranked non-ACC opponent. So the stakes were higher for him and his team. The pressure was on the Clemson Tigers, even at their home turf, because they're usually very strong and are very tough to beat at their home turf, unless they don't play well. And even with all that pressure and all the stakes being higher for Clemson, with all the game on the line for them to start off the season, they still didn't back down. They didn't back down. They've risen to the challenge. They didn't wilt beneath the pressure. They rose up to it like a flower rising to the sun. That doesn't make any sense, but I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but that doesn't work. So forget that. Forget that you just heard me say that. Anyway, but that's what's special about this game to me. An underdog team not being intimidated at all and played competitively against a higher-ranked monster. That's what college football is all about and should be about. Should have been about. And I love it. This was a truly fantastic game to watch from start to finish between two top 10 ranked teams. Two top 10 ranked teams. And again, this was the first time that Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers have defeated a top 5 ranked non-ACC team. What a great game it was. And what a great victory it was for Dabo Swinney and Clemson. This was one of the best games that I have ever seen Clemson played. One of the best SEC versus ACC matchup I have seen in years. Arguably top 5. Arguably top 5 SEC versus ACC matchup. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was at that point that many people outside of Clemson started taking them very seriously. Like many thought that Auburn would beat them, or that LSU would beat them, or that Georgia would beat them, or hell, even Ohio State would beat them. And Clemson proved them wrong, time after time, game after game. I mean, Clemson keeps being underestimated by many analysts and fans alike. And they keep reminding those people of that. It was that insane. So, this matchup was so epic, and it did not disappoint one bit. Now, unless if you're a Georgia fan, because if you're a Georgia fan, you would say that this was a disappointing loss for your team, and I can understand that. I would probably feel the same way if I were a Georgia fan, but I'm not. So because of that, because of the fact that I am not a Georgia Bulldogs fan, I'm a Florida State Seminoles fan, I love this football matchup. Moving on to number 3. The 2015 regular season Week 4 matchup. Number 12, Clemson defeated number 6, Notre Dame, 24-22. Now let me say this before I get into this win. This spot, number 3, and number 2, are really, really tough for me to choose. I mean, I was back and forth on the 3 and 2 spots. Because both of the games at those 2 spots were incredibly great in oh so many amazing ways. That it was difficult for me, that it was hard for me to watch as far as competition and higher stakes are concerned. But and it was difficult for me to choose which one is at number 3 and 2. But I have decided that this game would be at number 3 on my list. And here's why. Number 12 Clemson won at home against number 6 Notre Dame, 24-22, with that failed 2-point conversion with less than 10 seconds left of the game. That is huge. That is huge. And very similar to their 38-35 home victory against Georgia back in 2013, this 24-22 home win against Notre Dame raised Clemson's chances of entering the college football playoffs. Because if Clemson didn't beat Notre Dame, they would have a hard time climbing up to the Final Four of the college football playoffs, if not ever appear in the college football playoffs at all. So this was by far the best win in the Clemson Tigers' 2015 season. Forget about their 23-13 win against my Florida State Seminoles. Forget about their 45-37 win in the ACC championship game against North Carolina. This was, without doubt, the best victory that Clemson had in 2015. The best. The best. It was the one game that, to me, is why they were in the college football playoffs. This was another great home game to watch, and another great game at home. This was their 5th win against top 10 ranked non-ACC opponents in the 2012 to 2015 span, before winning a natty in 2016. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm saying to myself, it would be unfair to not put this game at least in the top 3 on my list. It would be unfair for Clemson, their coaches, their players, their fans, and anybody else associated with the program to not have this game in the top 3 on my list. That's how great this game was, and how great Clemson was going to be. It's just that simple. Moving on to number 2, the 2016 regular season Week 5 matchup. Number 5 Clemson defeated number 3 Louisville, 42-36. This was, hands down, one of the best ACC matchups I have ever seen in my life, if not the best. I mean, you want to talk about competitiveness, toughness, and tightness? This game had all of that plus more. You got 2 undefeated 4-0, I think it was 4-0, top 5 ranked teams in the same conference, led by 2 great quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson of the 3 ranked Louisville Cardinals, and Deshaun Watson of the 5 ranked Clemson Tigers. It was a huge quarterback duel, because this dude, Lamar Jackson, was absolutely balling very early in the 2016 season. Way early. He and his Cardinals outscored their first 4 opponents, including my Florida State Seminoles, when they outscored them 63-20. All the hype was around Lamar Jackson and what he was able to do. I mean, I think he scored 13 passing touchdowns and 11 rushing touchdowns in the first 4 games of the season going into this game. So, everybody was talking about Lamar Jackson and how great he was. The way he runs with the football, his mobility, his quickness, and how he flings that football are some of his best traits as a quarterback. And when you watch this game featuring him and Deshaun Watson, It honestly felt like something straight out of a superhero comic book. I mean, hell, even the intro for this game was very superhero comic booky. And fun fact, it was narrated by Clark Gregg. For those of you who don't know what that is, he played Agent Phil Coulson in a few Marvel movies, as well as one of the Marvel shows, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This game, on paper, felt like a superhero comic book. I mean, just based on two quarterbacks. I mean, this is based. I mean, in actuality, it's not really much of a superhero comic book football game, but just from the feeling that I got from this game, I mean, it's not basically a hero versus villain type of, football game for both quarterbacks. This is ultimately a hero versus hero type of, superhero comic book-esque football game. But anyway, this game was mostly about Clemson in the first half, and they were about to hold off Lamar Jackson in his running game, trying to keep him on his toes. But this was when this game got more exciting in the second half. Lamar Jackson and Louisville scored 16 points. And those 16 points, by the way, were off of 2 turnovers that Louisville forced against Clemson. An interception and a fumble recovered by the Cardinals' defense. The fumble recovery by the defense. And they also shut out Clemson in the third quarter, which makes it an 18-point deficit that the Louisville Cardinals had overcame in the third quarter. Then the game gets more electrifying and intense in the fourth quarter. Louisville was up by 8 within the last 7 minutes in the game. So the Clemson Tigers would have to score more than 1 touchdown to get the win. And Clemson did score 2 touchdowns. One of them ended with a 2-point conversion, which puts Clemson up 42-36. And then it all came down to Louisville's last possession with a little over 3 minutes left. So Lamar Jackson has had to get his offense down on the field to score a touchdown with the extra point to win the game. Because at that point, they were down by 6. A touchdown without an extra point. And on the very last play of the this football game, Louisville went for it on 4th down and 12. And half a minute left. Do you know what was the final play of the game? The final play of this game was the passing play when Lamar Jackson passed the ball to this dude named James Quick, and he didn't make it and this dude James Quick didn't make it to the first down. On a 4th down conversion. So Clemson won this game 42-36. This was a crazy game. And with a crazy ending. And I dug it a whole lot. What a game it was. And I keep saying that for a few games that I already counted down, but it's true. And some people argued that Clemson's victory was the reason why they're in the college football playoff conversation. And I disagree with that. I feel like Clemson's 37-34 victory against my Florida State Seminoles was their best chance of making to the college football playoffs. And I brought that up, and I already brought that up earlier. So to me, their 37-34 win in Tallahassee has impacted Clemson's chances of reaching the college football playoffs more than their 42-36 victory against Louisville has. Now I'm neither saying that this game wasn't very important, nor am I saying that I said that because I'm only just saying that because I'm a Florida State Seminoles fan. I'm just saying that people shouldn't should have pumped the brakes on how much of an impact this game had on Clemson and what it would mean for the rest of the 2016 season. That's just me, though. Now, it all comes down to this. My number one best Clemson football win under Dabo Swinney. The one win that brought Clemson to the mountaintop of college football. The one game that I feel like was the greatest accomplishment that they've ever achieved under Dabo Swinney. And it is, well, number one is the 2017 College Football Playoff National Championship. Number two, Clemson defeated number one, Alabama, 35-31. That's official. This is, without question or hesitation or doubt, the best victory that Dabo Swinney has ever had in his tenure at Clemson as the head coach. Easily the greatest accomplishment he has ever had as the Clemson Tigers football head coach. What his defensive coordinator Brett Venables, and the Clemson Tigers did in this game is something I will never forget. Ever. Which is pulling off the upset against the number one team in the country. That was the Alabama Crimson Tide. Coached by the one and only Nick Saban. 5 national champion. And keep in mind, this was the rematch to the 2016 College Football National Championship, where Alabama defeated Clemson 45-40, and going up against what was called against the great. Now keep in mind, this was the rematch to the 2016 College Football National Championship, where Alabama beat Clemson 45-40, and going up against the greatest defensive unit ever in college football, or so we were told. Deshaun Watson and his offense has had even more pressure on their shoulders and had more odds stacked up against them than ever before. So it was up to him in his playmaking, Dabo Swinney's coaching, and his teammates to stand their ground, their ultimate ground, against the Roll Tide defense. And for the majority of the first half, the Clemson Tigers offense struggled. They struggled. But Clemson's defense, however, was doing very well. They did very well at not letting Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Alabama's offense outscored them early on in the game, and also forced Alabama to punt the ball 6 times out of 9 possessions in the first half. And the Crimson Tide were up by halftime, 14-7. The second half begins, and that's when everything changed for me. At least in the fourth quarter. Deshaun Watson and the Clemson Tigers offense already scored 2 touchdowns in between 14 minutes and 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Nearly a 10-minute stretch of scoring touchdowns on Bama. And Jalen Hurts had to adjust and reclaim the lead to win the game. And he did score the touchdown, being up by a field goal, 31-28. And the Clemson Tigers offense had to have 2 minutes and 1 second left to get down on the field, score the last touchdown, and win the national championship. So the last drive of the game by Clemson was a 9-play drive. And Deshaun Watson made some incredibly great throws to Mike Williams, to Jordan Leggett, and to Hunter Renfrow. And with seconds, and Deshaun Watson, on the very last play of the game, throws a great game-winning pass to Hunter Renfrow for the touchdown with 1 second left. 1 freaking second left on the clock. And then there was the onside kick, recovered by Clemson. Deshaun Watson takes the knee, and the Clemson Tigers won the national championship for the first time since 1981, and became the first team to beat Nick Saban and Alabama in a national championship. What a game. This game, as far as the second half goes, was pretty reminiscent to the 2014 national championship, when my man Jameis Winston and my Florida State Seminoles beaten the Auburn Tigers 34-31. And remember that game-winning touchdown pass that Jameis Winston made to Kelvin Benjamin, and Kelvin Benjamin caught it, and it was a touchdown? The ending of this national championship game was very reminiscent to that game-winning touchdown. This was the all-time great win for Clemson, and one that I would argue is one of the greatest college football games of all time. Period. All the other 9 games that I just counted down on my list, this list, are setups for the Clemson Tigers becoming national champions. And Dabo Swinney, he even said after being rewarded with the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy, this is what he said. 8 years ago, which was the 2009, I think it was 2009. Anyway, Terry Don Phillips, I think he was the Clemson athletic director, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, then I apologize, and let me know what role does he play at Clemson. Gave me a chance to lead this program. We set out to put Clemson back on top. We came up a little short last year, which was the 2016 national championship. But tonight, the 2017 national championship, at the top of the mountain, that Clemson flag is flying. He then went on to say, credit to all my teams, because all my teams have a piece of this. They've been a part of this journey. It's been a heck of a ride, and everything that we've done once, we've done it again. So hopefully before they put me out to pasture, we can do this a few more times. And he did. He did win another national championship a couple of years later. The 2019 one, where he absolutely beat down Alabama. I mean, it was a butt whooping. 44-16, that was freaking unreal. The largest margin of victory in the Nick Saban era at Alabama, by 28 points. Man, oh man, oh man. So yeah, he won that, and he will very likely win the next national championship, if not the next 2, assuming and assuming Trevor Lawrence stays healthy. As long as he doesn't get injured, they'll win the next natty or two. So again, this was the #1 best win for the Clemson Tigers football program under Dabo Swinney since he became the interim head coach back in 2008. This was an absolute great achievement for them. Clemson fans have waited 35 years, and they finally saw their team claim a natty. That's a beautiful thing to see. That's a beautiful thing to see. Congratulations to Dabo Swinney, once again, and the Clemson Tigers for a decade of success that you have made. You deserve it, without a doubt. I'm proud of you. And I can't wait to watch you guys next season. Now, I still won't be watching college football as a whole because I still believe that the competition within it is dead due to Alabama's dominance. I still believe the college football competition is dead. But I will admit, I will be watching the Clemson Tigers play in the 2019 season. I can promise you that. I have no idea what my Florida State Seminoles are going to look like in the 2019 season. I don't know what their 2019 season is going to look like. I'm really, really hoping it will be better than the last two. I really do, but I just don't see it. Unless they prove something different at Florida State, I'm just still going to be looking at Clemson as the only team to watch in college football. So anyway, guys, that is my longest LBFT episode I have ever made. It's already an hour long, which has never been done before. I have never done an LBFT episode this long. This is officially the first LBFT episode I have made that is an hour long. That's crazy. I never thought it would be this long. Considering, well, I'm guessing, I'm not saying this right. Maybe I did expect this to be much longer than it usually does, because I put down a whole bunch of long notes of what I wanted to say for this game. But in all seriousness, congrats, like I said, congrats to Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers for what they have done over the last decade. They deserve what they get. I mean, 2 national championships in the last 3 years, that cannot be disrespected, or they can't be disrespected for that. And once again, I will be watching them play in the 2019 season. I will. I can promise you that. Good luck to the Clemson Tigers for having a great year in 2019. So anyway, guys, like I said, this is episode 23 of LBFT Season 2, the longest episode I have ever done in this entire series that I have made. Over an hour-long episode. That's crazy. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please click the like button, and if you have comment down below to let me know what you think of my list. Did you think that I got all the spots right? Or did you think that I missed out on a few games in Dabo Swinney's entire career at Clemson that should have been on this list? Let me know in the comment section below of what you think of my list. Did you agree with it or did you not agree with it? Just let me know. And if you enjoy what you've seen here and you want to see future episodes of LBFT from me, please press the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you never miss an episode of LBFT. And I will see you guys in the next episode of LBFT, which will be on, like I said, the top 10 Alabama, or the top 10, my top 10 favorite Alabama football games/losses. It's going to be me somewhat trolling Alabama fans, but also letting you guys know why I have the games on my list the way that they are at certain spots. But anyway, LBFT Season 2 will end with a 24th episode on my top 10 list for games that Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide have lost, and ones that I actually love. So, anyway, that's it. I will see you guys in the next episode, which is the season finale of LBFT Season 2. Have a great week, Battle Squad, and as always, fight the good fight.